Commission meeting on Wednesday, March 28th. Kim Ricard,
Collis Adams, Selectman's Rep.
Patty Gale, staff.
Jean Walker.
David Neiman.
Okay, the first on our agenda is we're going to discussion with Don Burrows, the director, with regards to the Conservation Commission finance account in budget and investment. Don?
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I'm Don Boyer. I'm the Finance Director and Treasurer here at Town Hall. And I'm coming up on my one-year anniversary with the town, so I'm still learning a lot. But I wanted to thank Jean and the commission members for having me in tonight. The intent, you have a brief one-page handout there. What I'd like to do is talk for a few minutes about a few of the statutory requirements that, as treasurer, I have to operate under by state law. And we'll go through a few of those and then shift over into some more practical observations and some applications and what does all of this mean. So we'll get to that too. And then hopefully after that, if any of you have any questions, do the best I can to answer them. The first thing that I did was I read back through the minutes of the February 22nd meeting, and there were several questions asked, which I've highlighted, which I'm going to attempt to answer as we go through and share some information. The first thing to point out with all of this is that, and it's a very general concept, but New Hampshire is a statutory state as opposed to a home rule state. Well, what does that mean? It means that the idea is to find a statute that says we can do something as opposed to taking the position, well, the statute doesn't say we can't do it, therefore we can. I realize those are a little bit of semantics, but it's important, and it's going to come into play in a few minutes here. The area of investments as treasurer is controlled by state statute. One of the primary ones, RSA 36A5, of course, talks about the Conservation Committee, you folks, and the Conservation Fund. There's basically two pots of money that I'm aware of at this point. One, of course, is the Conservation Fund itself, which is in an account with Citizens Bank. The other is the Conservation Capital Reserve Fund. And those two pots of money are governed by different statutes, and we're going to get to those very shortly. On the Conservation Fund, that fund, of course, is held by the treasurer and paid out in accordance with the wishes of you folks, the Conservation Commission. And from an investment standpoint, unfortunately, I don't have very much choice in this area. State statute limits me, it's RSA 4129.4, which is on the handout, talks about following the Selectmen's investment policy. And there's also another statute in Chapter 41 of the RSAs that basically limits the investments. There's really only four things. Treasuries, the New Hampshire Public Deposit Investment Pool, a PDIP, if you will, and bank accounts, savings and CDs, and that's it, unfortunately. Again, we're a statutory state, so the idea is, what does the statute allow us to do? Those are the four things on the Conservation Fund. Now, on the Capital Reserve Fund, that one's held by the trustees of trust funds, and they also have an investment policy, which is probably beyond the scope of what we're talking about tonight, but state statute in a different section also places fairly severe limitations on what they're allowed to invest in, and the laws are quite similar. And the upshot of all this, the way I see it, is these are all fairly low-risk, safe, liquid type of investments. They're not supposed to be the type of things where you're looking for huge returns and things like that. I'm sure everyone here knows the interest rates are very, very, very low right now. Everything that I've heard in the last year from sources such as Cutwater Asset Management, who are the folks that do the investing with the PDIP, the Vice President of Government Banking at Citizens Bank, and Barron's, publications like this, they've all been pretty consistent in this area. And the upshot of it is that the rates are expected to stay very low for probably at least another 12 months, maybe longer. No one has a crystal ball on this, but that's what I read, that's what I hear from the sources that I've had the opportunity to talk to during the course of my job. And I want to be a little bit more specific in terms of the interest rates. The current interest rate on the conservation fund, that's the one that I as treasurer have custody of. It's basically a commercial interest-bearing checking account with Citizens Bank. And the current interest rate is, the rates are subject to change every day, but right now they're only about 4/100ths of 1%. They're extremely low interest rates right now, as low as I've ever seen them. And that's the bad news. The good news is I think they're starting to creep up a little bit. In the past month, I get an email every day from the folks at the Cutwater Asset Management, and the PDIP has come up to 6, 7, 800ths. It's still only around 1/10 of 1%. I mean, we can do a little bit of math on this in a minute and see what the effect of this is. But the point I'm trying to make is, the primary point is that we're very limited in what we're allowed by statute to invest in, and the ones that we do have, the interest rates are minuscule right now, unfortunately. For example, I looked at some of the conservation fund I would describe it as a fairly low activity account, which I want to talk a little bit about the options with Citizens Bank that we have. Because when I first started looking at some of this, I thought, gee, I talked to their VP of Government Banking, there's got to be something we can do with this, right, to make the money work a little bit harder. And we had an interesting chat that day, and the upshot of it is that from the bank's perspective, there's basically only two arrangements. One, and the better one, in my opinion, for this particular fund is the interest-bearing account, which is the current situation. The other option is an earnings credit system, which we use on a few of the other town accounts that have a whole lot more activity, like the vendor account with the general fund and the payroll and some of those accounts. And with the earnings credit, the very high balances can sometimes offset the bank fees, but in this case, since it's a low activity account, you're better off with the interest because at least you're earning something on the money. I'll give you a quick example. The conservation fund currently has a little over $300,000 in it, and there's been very little activity for at least the last several months on that. It's mostly just the interest. And again, it's drawing interest at that very low rate. However, if we were to switch it to the earnings credit, we wouldn't be earning anything on it. So it's the better system is what we currently have with that conservation fund. I do see a possibility of maybe moving a piece of it into the PDIP if the commission so desires. The rates are slightly higher with the PDIP. I'd like to give a quick example of that. And I want to introduce another very, very key concept. With any of these accounts, of course, the real question is, when will you need the money? I know the commission is planning on doing some work with a large parcel here in town. I don't remember the name of it, but it was fairly centrally located, and I spoke with a few folks about it. They said it was a very nice, desirable parcel, and I know the commission's working with that. But the thing that I would encourage the commission to think about is, when do you need the money? With the PDIP, I want to shift over to that for a minute. The PDIP offers the advantages of, their main advantage is liquidity, and again, I'm not I'm just trying to stay neutral on this and given the options here, but the PDIP does have safety and liquidity. There are no, it's not a time deposit like a CD in a bank. The municipality can deposit and withdraw at any time on that. For example, if you as a commission were to decide to, say, put maybe 200,000 into the PDIP, that rate would go up several hundredths of a percent. And I realize we're talking increments here, but it would, currently that amount would earn probably no more than about $7 a month in interest. If we put it in the PDIP, it might go up around 20 a month. We're not talking about big money here. And I wish I had better news on this, but the interest rate environment is again, minuscule right now. Will that change going out a year or two? I sure hope so. As treasurer, I'd like to make some of the town's money work harder. I've done the math on some of this, on some of the other town funds, and I'll give one quick example. On the general fund, the rates would have to come up to about 0.25% before the savings and earnings credit would make the math work to do the investment. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 right now. But again, consider when the funds would be needed on something like that and go from there. So we've talked a little bit about the rates and the projections and the Citizens Bank options. I have not looked into treasuries. I know that those rates are, again, very, very, very low. If I had to guess, probably not much better than the other products that are allowable by statute. But it's kind of a tough situation right now. I realize that's a bit of a gloomy picture, but the state law simply doesn't allow me to invest in other products that might potentially have higher returns. That's really about all I was going to cover. I noticed a couple of questions in the February 22nd minutes. We talked a little bit about the capital reserve, and again, the capital reserve is held by the trustees of trust funds, so they make the investment decisions on that one. There was a comment made, there was a question if there were restrictions about buying CDs. The answer is no, there aren't any restrictions. Again, as long as now you're talking about time deposits. So now you got to think about when do we need the money. I talked with the VP for government banking from Citizens within the last month, and they're not offering the shorter term CDs at all. Shortest term one they had was 3 months. I was hoping for something shorter for one of the other town funds, but again, the math doesn't quite work yet on that. So the bank from time to time might offer different products. I am in touch with them on at least a monthly basis, and we talk about these things. There was a question, we already talked about the Capital Reserve Fund. That was, I think, about it on the questions from the previous meeting that I saw in there, at least in the section that I was going to talk about. Did any of the members have any questions at this point?
David?
Well, first of all, Mr. Board, thank you so much for
Don,
coming in.
please. Yeah.
Because this is so helpful to,
Good.
we've asked the question several times. And
Sure.
Usually the answers come back, there's nothing that can be done. Your answer's much better.
There's always products out there. The question is which ones are allowed by state law and which ones are the banks and the PDIP offering is the real question.
So in our minds, when we had this discussion amongst ourselves, we were never thinking anything other than very conservative, safe within the rules and regulations.
Right.
And we often thought, why couldn't some of it be in a CD?
Mm-hmm.
And because we do know we have a long run-up, the conservation fund, it builds up very slowly. It takes years for it to build up to the point for some projects. Sometimes there's donations where it's very, very inexpensive. Yeah. But, we know in some of these big projects, we know even when we start them, that it's going to take a year or more to complete. So I mean, CD terms like 6 months, 9 months, even up to a year, I think
Yeah.
are something that we could consider, especially since it wouldn't have to be 100% in the CD. You know, it could be some smaller amount kept in the lower interest rate one that would cover something like, you know, somebody made a donation and it was very,
Right.
very
And
inexpensive.
that's an important consideration, because you'd want to look at, well, you know, what monies do we need right now, or next month, or even next quarter? What monies could be set aside, you know, for 6 months, 9 months, a
Yeah.
year? What I could do, it would be I can check back in at the first of the week. I'm going to be out for a few days, but next week, when I get back in, I can check with the bank and see what they're currently offering. Say,
Usually.
6 months, 9 months, a year, those
Maybe-
the,
Yeah, do you think 6 months, 9 months? We could go 9 months, right?
We could easily go 9 months.
9 months. I was
I'm going to
say
make a
9 months.
note of that.
Even the next project we're working on, there's no way it would
Be-
be
be-
done
before
in
9 months.
2012.
You might want to do multiple ones too. Different ones.
Different, yeah. Well, and
You can
Plus,
always do
even-
different term
I mean, we
ones, sure.
wouldn't put 100%
No.
in.
No.
In the first place, we would leave some in the current more liquid account. But also, we would have to have that more liquid account anyway for when money does come into the fund. There may be
Right.
some payment from a land use change tax thing. Or citizens can also make voluntary contributions into the fund that could occur at any time. So there'd always have to be something to capture that.
Are there any time periods other than 6, 9, and 12 months that you'd like me to ask about?
Can't imagine.
At this point, I don't think so, because
Okay.
the project that we're currently looking at is the biggest one we will ever do.
Okay. Because
Without a doubt. And if we
the,
did that, we'd pretty much deplete.
Yeah, we're going to be done.
we've been pleased with their service to the town. Their government banking division's very responsive and courteous, and they'll get me the answers. I can probably get that with one phone call, probably early next week, if that's okay.
So essentially, your answer is that, yes, we can do what we've always wanted to know if we could do, which is at least have a CD.
As long as the banks are state or federally chartered, and basically most of them, as far as I know, are. I know Citizens is, so yes, that's available.
But the numbers aren't much different.
Right.
Really, than what we're
Interest
talking.
That's
rate.
right.
Well,
Yeah, the
it might
numbers
be-
aren't very
It might be
good.
4 times as much, so it's $40 a month instead of 10.
Yeah.
No, it's,
But, I mean.
We'll see what they have
it-
for
it
interest
adds up
rates.
Over a year, yeah. 'Cause it
Yeah.
adds
Yeah,
up.
so you have to weigh balance, is it worth tying up the money for the small incremental gain?
I
Exactly.
don't have anything else to do with it.
That's the question.
It probably is worth it.
It is at this point, because we're not going to be touching this money for,
it's the nature of the fund and how we use
Yeah.
it, is that
Yeah.
it takes a long time to be able to build up enough to be able to do a project, and
Yeah.
so it's always
And again, $50 question is, when will you need the money?
Right.
Because you certainly don't want to go into a CD and then have to break the CD, because then you're looking at a penalty for early withdrawal, and that wipes out the benefit of doing it in the first place.
Mhm.
So that's a really important thing to consider.
So both of our accounts we could put in CDs?
Well, no,
Both
the
of
other,
them?
the other account is managed by
The
the
other one is-
trustees.
Right.
So you
Yeah,
can't,
I'm
okay.
only speaking about the conservation fund.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's the one that's under my custody.
Okay.
the other one's the trustees.
And that
And that's
trust
the
fund.
capital reserve, you can't.
That's what always made us wonder too, is because that
Yeah.
fund does, I mean, obviously, interest rates are very low, and larger is a relative term.
Yes,
But at
it
least
is.
it always had
Sure.
something that we could
Yep.
see and go, oh, okay, well, there's some interest, that's good, that'll help, and
Yep.
whereas the other one is like, what?
Yeah, I know.
It all helps. eh?
All helps.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, call us.
I kind of have a general question, maybe you can or cannot answer this. The conservation fund, is that safe from, for lack of a better term, raiding by the town to help pay for other town expenses? In other words, is it safe money? Is it dedicated, truly dedicated?
I
For
would,
the
I would
purpose of-
say in general, yes, it is. It is designated by statute as, there's a whole list of things that can be done with the money. It's in RSA 36A is the statute on that. And it is earmarked for conservation-related projects, for lack of a better explanation. But in that sense, yes.
Yeah, that was my reading of it, I just wanted to get your
I agree.
opinion on it.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm still astonished at the interest rate.
Me too.
I'm sort of glad to hear it, because it confirms the numbers I ran, but I wasn't sure I could believe them.
Sure.
Because I've never heard of 4/10 of.
4/10
or
per hundred.
4/100.
400 is
4/100.
approximately the current rate at Citizens. And when you start doing the math, I was going through this, I'm taking 200,000 times 0.0004, because you figure 0.04 would be 4%, and you keep adding decimals in there, and pretty soon you're talking about very small
Yeah,
numbers.
it's not even worth considering. I mean, it's,
You just had to believe.
Yeah, they're very, very low.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, we thank you very much for coming
Thanks a
in.
lot.
thank you very much.
Welcome, thanks
And,
for having me.
I think, yes, and I think this answered a lot of questions that been coming and
Yep.
going.
We may not like the
Well,
answers,
We
but
may not like the answers, but
they're
Well,
answers.
Sure.
Do we need to
And
consider whether
Patty,
we wanna-
Patty has my contact
Yes.
information if there's questions or anything.
we should, maybe, do you think we should make a decision on what the interest rates are when you find out about the CDs? Should we bring that back to another meeting, or should we say put something into the CDs?
Do you want to just see what it is
I
first?
think we ought to wait.
Yeah,
and see.
yeah.
Why don't we
We
see
can't vote
first?
on something without
It
knowing
could
what.
be
that
two
is.
Right, yeah.
100ths of a
Be two and
percent.
okay.
Right.
So
Why don't we
you will
wait?
get that information
I
and
will.
send it in to us for our next meeting?
Would it be okay if I email it to Patty?
That would
Oh,
be
yeah,
fine.
absolutely.
I can do that.
Yeah, that would be
Sure.
fine, sure.
Will do.
And that way we can take it from there.
Great,
Okay,
okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Don.
so much.
Thank you.
That was a rosy picture, wasn't it?
Here's a rosy picture. You're not gonna live on your interest. Okay, we have map 24, lot 63A. We have Mr. Methot here for New Hampshire DES shoreline permit application to tear down home and rebuild new home on property that abuts the Piscataquag River. Property is located on 15 Cove Street. The applicant will be going to the planning board for a conditional use permit. The applicant received a variance and special exceptions from the ZBA on February 7th, 2012. Yes, do we have someone here?
Yes, my name is Alfie Methot. I'm the owner of the property at 15 Cove Street. In essence, I'm trying to fulfill the requirement of having a wetland impact report. So I commissioned Mr. Chris Danforth to do just that. And at the same time, I commissioned Mr. Mike Dahlberg to start talking about the shoreline or shoreland permit from the state. So both of those things are in progress. You have the result of Mr. Danforth before you. And
He looks at the big one, grab that
I believe you have the plan for the shoreland permit also.
one. Oh, is he looking at that? You're all set.
She wants a little one. You should have had it in your package.
So in essence, I'm not doing anything within the first 50 feet from the river. So nothing there is changing or being modified in any way. The property, the house will be from the 50-foot mark to the 150-foot mark.
So he has to go to the state for a shoreline permit, but he also has to go to the planning board for conditional use permit because he's impacting the outer 50-foot buffer area. So a recommendation to planning would be needed, and that's why you got a copy of his report right there, on the impact, because it falls under the Wetland Surface Water Conservation District as well as the shoreline. So we're killing two birds with one stone.
And do either,
Yeah, go ahead.
do either or both of those provisions have an exclusion for when, it's existing building being replaced by another building on the same spot? Or is there a change in footprint here or other?
Definitely a change in footprint, yes.
For zoning, if he was to rebuild on, if it was like, a natural disaster and he's rebuilding on the existing footprint, that's when they have a year to rebuild. And he's changing the footprint. Did you have any damage from the floods? at all?
No, I'm well above the flood mark. I'm at least 12 feet above the river, even before it starts touching the foundation.
Are you closer to the river than you were with the existing house?
No.
No.
No, definitely not.
You'll be a little farther back?
Farther back.
Okay. And I noticed that it looks like you're not disturbing that much of the shoreline. You're leaving the large trees. And,
By the shoreline, yes. There's nothing being touched within the first 50 feet
Of
of
the
the
shore.
river. Nothing's being touched.
and they'll be put up, the silt fence and so.
Yes, I think that's part of the recommendation that,
That's usually something we're
Yes.
quite concerned. Collis, do you see anything?
Well, you know, I mean, you're gonna have to comply with the Surface Water Quality
Right.
Protection Act provisions at the state. It appears to do that. It looks like you're making improvements, including replacing the septic system with one that meets today's standards.
I have changed the septic system in 2008. I've got the state permit to prove that.
Mhm.
It was a brand-new system that was put in.
Yeah, I think it's primarily a state issue.
I was just gonna say, a lot of it
State
looks like,
standards and,
yeah,
I think you've satisfied the,
right, and I think our
Regulatory
concerns would mainly be to, you know,
Stabilize
comply
the
with the state and to make sure that everything is stabilized on the shorefront.
and there's nothing going on in the first 50 feet.
So is there any kind of action that's required from us? Does the state expect us to
No.
comment on it or anything?
But the planning board, the report is required for, him to do for the conditional use permit. It's in the zoning ordinance, so when they're on the outer, they have to go planning, they have to provide this report, and then they have to,
Mhm.
So,
Is it meeting the next?
it's on April 12th, it goes to planning, so.
planning
And
wants
you're
our
part of
comments.
technical review as well, to look at a plan that goes before, so if there's any recommendations,
To the
if you have
planning
no
board.
issues or concerns, just something to pass off to the planning board
Okay.
when they review it.
I think mainly just the disturbance in the first 50 feet, and like Dave Collis says, he has to comply with the state anyways.
Yes, I believe Mr. Dahlberg suggested, in order to make it compliant, I have to remove my driveway and put in a pervious
Pervious surface.
driveway.
Right.
Which I plan to do, yes,
Yeah, the state has percentage
Oh.
coverage
correct.
requirements that you have to meet, yeah.
And I think that was one of the things we had said the last couple of ones was a lot of the runoff from the roof, if you have the pervious, and we talked about some like rain gardens and things like that to have to absorb some of the water. It's just an area of grass and
But that's something, again, that
the state will take care of that, yeah.
Yes,
Closely at, so.
The impervious areas, the roof are going to dry wells, right?
I have a dry well on, and they will be, the runoff will be going to the dry well, yes.
So it all complies.
So,
So would you like to pass to planning that he's going to comply with the
State.
the state regulations, and you have no issues or concerns, just stabilizing?
stabilizing and the first 50 feet and
I'm not a voting member, sorry. Have to do that for you folks.
anything else, Dave?
Someone wanna make a,
I'll make a motion that we have no areas of concerns above and beyond the requirements that are already there from the state. And that, of course, as always, we would we'll want to see the usual precautions taken in terms of runoff and construction, which of course they do anyway.
We need a second.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
all right.
Very good.
That was
Thank you
easy.
so much.
It wasn't painful, right?
No, it wasn't.
And I'll forward these to Brian, so planning will have the comments, so they'll know that
Very
it's been
good.
reviewed.
On the
Do you
12th.
need these?
On the 12th.
Who's
I would-
plans?
no,
Those are
12.
mine.
Those are all yours?
Those are mine for planning.
Okay.
We'll make sure you get everything.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you so
coming in.
much. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming in. Okay, why don't we do treasurer's report?
Kind of.
I kind of put it in there. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe there isn't any.
No, I was kind of thinking Dawn was doing that.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Other than, there is one.
Our current use balance from citizens through February 29th, 2012, our current balance is $304,630.07 with an interest of $9.65. That's why we asked him to come in. Yep.
It went down, it's been $10.
It went down. It keeps going down. Okay. Is anything on open space, David?
No, there's no update. Nothing new has occurred, just still waiting on, see when we hear back on the byway application.
Okay. And minutes? Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? I looked them over, they looked fine to me. Okay, anybody want to make a motion? I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstained because I wasn't here.
Okay. We have correspondence. We have a copy from New Hampshire DES wetland permit for Lipschwitz on Terrell Hill Road, map 11, lot 10, for the dredge and fill applicants of Karen and Bailey, lot, map 5, lot 92A and 89. Also a copy permit for Karen and Bailey on Wallace Road, map 5, lot 89. We had a letter of, sent to the State Forester and Board of Selectmen from the Conservation Commission with regards to the timber cut permit for Lesnick Road, map 4, lot 20, Brookfield Investment Group. Have we heard anything about the timber cut? Anything new? I did have a call concerning the cut, and Susan did go look at it, and we
Is that a
figured,
cut that's already been done?
yes. What's up on the,
I know where it is, yeah.
up on Lesnick, and she went to look at it, and, because I was out of town, and we wanted to make sure people did know that we are keeping it close, and we're leaving it up to the forester.
Yep.
So we figured that we have asked the forester to take care of some of this, so, and I'm sure he'll get back to us. I don't know if he's been in to see you at all, Patty, or?
Well, no, we sent the letter just noting that there was concerns because
Concerns.
it is a wet area, and it
Mhm.
also went to the selectmen as well. Just to have him watch, if he doesn't see, if he generally sees that they're in a wetlands or something like that, he does notify them they have to go to the state.
Right.
He's very good at that.
Yeah,
So if he doesn't see anything, I don't imagine
he
we're
is very good, and I
gonna
did
hear anything back.
talk to him, just happened to talk to him the day before that he was gonna go up and check on it, so I think he has been keeping an eye on it, he's trying to keep an eye on it. Anyways, we also have a timber cut permit for Janigan, map 6, lot 54 on Terrell Hill. We have some brochures. We have a seminar and a workshop from UNH for the Turf and Ground Conference. Workshop for New Hampshire DES Annual Drinking Water Source Protection Workshop. Right to Know Law Training on April 24th at our high school at 7 o'clock, if
Yep.
anyone's interested. Is that open to the public?
That's all, I believe.
It'll be, and if there's
mean-
anyone out there that would like to go, they could also go.
Is, administration stressing it'd be great that whoever would like to attend, any of the committee members, they'd love that they attend.
And then we just have some brochures on, in magazines.
And does attending add any expense for the town if a board member goes, or is it a fixed fee that,
I don't think that, I think it's,
Any fee
I
at
don't think
all?
there's any fee.
okay.
Is anyone
That I
interested
wasn't-
in the brochures? No, not right now.
The only other really is, there's the complaint that came in, it's not listed about chickens next to the river.
Oh, was that it?
That's that, yeah.
The chickens, we have
We just got a copy from the state because they were notified.
New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, Land Resources requests the complaint date of housing chickens. Adjourn it to the Piscataqua River, Glen Lake. And the Department of New Hampshire Agriculture. I believe this is maybe not for us to take care of, or,
The zoning administrator will look to see if there's
Zoning,
any zoning
okay.
violations
Say
that
who the
occur with it.
complainant was?
It doesn't, yeah, it does.
and that will be taken care of through zoning?
If there is,
If-
are any
if
zoning
zoning,
violations,
okay.
but it's the state, I don't know if the state has their
Maybe
own
would-
little,
would the
their
state
own
have
laws
their
with
rule on
regard
that?
to it, but that's a copy from the state.
From the
sent to
state,
us.
so it has already been sent to
Yeah.
the state, so that is for our records.
And then we have a letter of resignation.
And we have a letter of resignation from Richard Meany, who has resigned. We thank him very much for his service on our board and wish him well on his next board. And do we have any other business? We'll have a,
Were we gonna talk about the conservation lands layer? Are we gonna talk about that tonight, or?
We can, yeah, I
Yeah.
gave that out too as well.
okay. Okay, yes. Alex, you wanna help us out with this?
Well, I know David had some concerns about
Maybe
the
David?
accuracy and those sorts of things, but, I just want to bring forth that I think it's important as a community that we make sure it's as accurate as we can make it, because it's used for many purposes at the state level. And I know David said he's willing to help identify the parcels and which are permanently protected, which are under homeowner deed restrictions, which are not necessarily permanently protected and whatnot. And he didn't have the time to dedicate to working through the administrative process of making the changes. But I thought as a commission, we ought to at least look at the parcels and identify the ones that we feel comfortable with, that are permanently protected, that we don't feel comfortable with, and the ones that are in between.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, this actually came up a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
It comes up every so often.
but at that last time, the forms that we got, I mean, it was, for each individual parcel, you had several pages to fill out. And, when you're looking at it and going, oh my gosh, there's 20 things to do here, at that time, it's like, no, I can't take this on. And so that's why, when the question was asked, my answer was, well, it depends on how much help you're asking for.
And I can appreciate that, believe me.
So I have information with me that, we could actually sit and look at the map and say X on that, and this one's missing, and
Excellent.
because I know it isn't accurate, I know it isn't accurate for every town I've ever looked at.
Okay,
Part of it there used to be a requirement, when you reported it, you were supposed to send a check in with it. And this was several years ago. I think they've dropped that because, yeah, right.
yeah.
And the one pattern that you really notice is what tends to get reported more faithfully are the open space areas of subdivisions. I'm guessing because it may be a requirement of the subdivision process to submit your shape file for GIS, and it gets forwarded on. That's complete speculation, but it would seem plausible. The problem is, a lot of those properties, it's a real spectrum and of how well they're protected or not protected. And a lot of that has to do with when it happened, because when you look at when we first had the open space ordinance come in to the town, there's like, yeah, area is set aside, but it's just set aside. It's not really protected. There's no easement. There's no, it's a common area that the homeowners association has control over. And to me, it seems a little inaccurate to have it in the same GIS layer at the state level as a conservation easement protected area. They're completely different things. I don't know to what degree they discriminate on that, or if anybody even checks when the forms come in to make note of that, because it isn't just Goffstown, you look at other towns as well and you see the
Yeah.
same thing.
I mean,
Jason had done a big report that had a lot of them on, which might be where a lot of this came from. When we looked at, we were concerned because it says
Oh, yeah.
public lands,
Right.
and a lot of it is not public,
Which
it's
is gonna
private.
Right,
private.
yeah,
Yes.
just the name of the layer is troublesome. There's a big difference between a conservation parcel and a public land.
Well, where's it labeled as public lands?
Under
Well,
the
it-
legend.
Under the legend, the green one.
It's conservation slash
Slash
public
public
lands. I
lands.
think it's supposed to be both.
Yeah, I assume it's either one.
But some of them are the open space to a open
Mm.
space development that doesn't have any public or use, or, I don't know, some of them may not even have conservation easements.
You're right.
So really, in a way, it's something that should be settled by the people managing Granite. What categories do you really want in here, and are you going to at least discriminate between those when they're submitted? I mean, you know, I sort of railed about not wanting to fill out pages and pages of metadata on each parcel, but there are certain pieces of metadata which should be included, like, yeah, this one's protected with an easement.
Yeah.
I think you want it
this one's
both
a
identified
public.
and identified separately.
Yes,
Yeah.
They
as
could say
public and as
undeveloped
cons,
land.
yeah,
They are completely different. in terms
Yep,
of
they are.
Open space can never be developed, so
Right.
if it's undeveloped land.
And as an example, if you look at the parcel on the north side of Glen Lake that looks like the state of Washington, that's where the kindergarten is.
I know.
We all thought that that was protected land. We
Obviously,
now know that the left-hand side of it is gone,
is gone.
and then the right-hand side is still, who knows? Is
Supposed
it
to be.
protected or is it not protected? If you consider it, as you did with the kindergarten, it's not.
It's not. And we always thought
So-
it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, it turns out it was purchased many, many years ago to be conservation
Conservation
land,
land.
but that was never recorded.
Recorded
because there's never
correctly.
an easement recorded on it, and
Well, what's the data source for this stuff then?
well,
This
And
is granite,
folks like us.
I think we,
Is that, okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
and I think we tried to get that recorded after the kindergarten, and it didn't happen. Or tried to get something. Evelyn Miller was very diligent trying to get that, to get info on that. So,
Well, so that's one that, right there, I mean, that's one that should have an X put through it. It should not
Right.
be on the layer. It's,
Yep.
there's a building there, and a parking lot.
Right. I mean,
Doesn't make any sense.
the right-hand side, still public land? How do you define public land? I guess it's public land, the public can access it and use it, but it's not protected in any way,
no,
so it's not conserved.
no. I guess it should be public land and conserved land. There's two different things, right?
Right.
Totally.
Was that town-owned or who owns it? Was it conservation?
It's town-owned.
Town-owned. We thought we
So
did
maybe
that.
that's the
Town.
putting them together, town-owned or conservation lands.
So that one is out.
Right, but most of the best protected lands with the strongest protection, which is the form of a conservation easement, the majority of those are private.
Private.
And it's, you know, they want this to be in the layer, and it's important for that to be in the layer. Just because it's a conservation property, it's somebody's private land, that's up to that landowner what the access is to it. And that's not something that this layer has anything to say about. But when conservation lands are, when you're looking at whether to establish an easement or protect an area, one of the most important attributes is, are there other conservation areas nearby? Because large contiguous blocks of land have much more valuable protection for wildlife and so on than a small area does. So all conservation efforts are always trying to build larger cohesive blocks and not small isolated scattered parcels. And that's probably one of the greatest values of this layer and why it, you know, it should be accurate.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And, you know, to bring it to reality is when the state is looking for mitigation for wetland impacts, to mitigate, offset wetland impacts, they're looking for parcels that are contiguous with other protected parcels. And if they look at this map, they'll say, oh, it's adjacent to this one. Well, when it may not really be adjacent to a protected parcel. I mean, that's an example of
Kindergarten.
how, you know, the map is used by others than just local entities. DES uses it all the time. they refer to this,
It's protected.
and say, well, that's a good piece to protect because now it makes that interconnection that you're talking about, David, with other protected lands. Well, if it's not really protected, then that connection really doesn't exist.
Yeah. So Patty, you'd mentioned before about the report that Jason had done. He was the first one to put it together, but I've been holding a copy and maintaining that ever
Oh,
since.
good.
So I've updated it 2 or 3 times.
I think that's what it started from, was when he
Yeah,
started
it's a
doing this.
spreadsheet.
Oh, great.
So you have a updated map
Well,
that can offer protected properties
Well, what we need to do is
we need to just,
tie that spreadsheet
to
to
this.
these green blobs, because I don't see parcels here, and
Right.
I'm sure you may be able to blow this up and zoom in and figure out the exact parcels, but
here's a,
He's got a small
yeah,
one too.
this is from a recent grant application that I put in, and I guess it was in January, so it's a little more up to date, because I wanted to see the area, so we can sort of look at this and reference it off, and then with the spreadsheet
Yeah.
with his actual map and lot numbers. The last 2 easements that have been created, I don't have map and lot numbers from them, because, they were subdivided off of their parent lot, and I don't know what the new number is for that.
And that's the Robinson and the Clark, those easements for those two?
No, we know what the Clark is.
Okay.
It's the, well, one is the Montalona Road,
Yeah, right.
Blackbriar,
Oh,
where
yeah.
the
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
120 acres was
Yep.
Yep.
donated to the PLC.
Yep.
So,
Map 9, lot 60.
that's not the green parcel that's shown here off Montalona?
no, that's
That's on the wrong side of the
Waldvogel.
road.
That's
That's on the-
town-owned Waldvogel land,
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah. This is on the other side of Montalona.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the bigger missing ones.
Mhm.
Blackbriar, okay.
So like I said, I have a lot and map number for that. And the most recent easement is the Grand George easement.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
Oh,
we don't have a official
Right,
shape
yeah.
file or map and lot number for the part that was
I can get those.
split off.
That's
Mhm.
easy for me. I already know
Same
part of
thing with the
Blackbriar.
Montalona Road one too. I don't have the shape file for what was broken off. I just, so in my own personal map, I'm just showing both of those
Mhm.
parcels that made it up, but in fact, it was like 20 acres out of the corner here that shouldn't be in that. But that's more accurate than not.
That's
Mm.
probably in last year, those two that need to be.
Well, but there's lots of other things missing. And
Okay.
so I don't know if you wanna just, how we wanna proceed here. What is the requirement this time around? Did you see the forms or?
I just actually emailed it to me to bring to you, and, I just asked for the detail map that pertained to Goffstown to look at.
Yeah, was this,
This one here.
Fortunately, I remembered to bring this
Here.
stuff this morning, I forgot to bring my envelope.
Does he have one right in front of?
But I can open up
does
and
not
get
show
more
all the
information.
conservation lands, please email Marielle, who will send you submission materials and instructions. So I guess
Yeah,
that's
so
the first
that-
thing we need to do is find out what,
That's what it was last time,
Yeah.
though.
Mhm.
Last time it's like, oh,
Seems-
sure, no
seems pretty
problem,
easy.
and then the forms came,
Yeah.
it's like, you've gotta be kidding me.
yeah.
Okay, so get them, the submission forms?
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Appreciate receiving your updates by mid-April.
Sure she would.
But that's not a hard deadline. If you need more time, that's fine. Rather receive them later than never.
Mhm.
Nope, we can come up with what we have to add. So there's a lot of forms, is what you believe, to go with it?
That there was last time.
Yeah, the only way to find out is to,
And
Email
actually,
or
since the
that.
last time, some of them I think have appeared that weren't there before. Like I think Butterfield, Smith, Kingsbury Timber tract owned by Forest Society was missing
The
previously.
one that butts like Bog Road?
Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah, that
that's
one
in
I've
here
seen.
now.
Mhm.
So Forest Society probably put that in themselves. Well, so, I don't know, you wanna like gather around and look
Sure.
at this? It's kinda small, sorry, only.
We'll gather around him.
Yeah, I'll just come up in the center here. Guess this won't work on the cameras.
Ah, I see.
So, well, we already mentioned the two monoloader, that's probably one of the biggest.
To add that, yep, I got
Yeah, that should be added, of course, with the proper shape without the development in it.
Yep.
So coming over here, we have the port easement, which extends all the way down here. It actually covers 5
Yeah,
different
that's not
parcels.
in
Is that not on here?
Nope.
It's support?
And I can
We
give
just-
you map and lot numbers for that, it's in the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Can we just circle those or something? So we-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody have a red pen?
I would've, but I don't anymore.
Or a highlighter or something, it's gonna look like a road.
Yeah, it looks like a road, you're right.
Blue, or I have a big,
looks-
I have a black.
It looks like a road.
Yeah, it's not.
That might be better, this
It's
will be
shabby.
wider.
Well, not much
No,
better.
actually, it's about the same.
That's right. Well, you got blue.
All right, well,
Um,
we'll just circle them right here, but we'll
Okay, and
make
then
a list from the
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
Okay.
ports is
So,
the-
yeah, the port is like 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's 5 lots altogether, it kinda comes up like so. And then looking at this, I believe they,
Oh, yeah, go joins
so
right
these
in
are
here.
from open space subdivision that have come right real close to it, so those are already there. And then, of course, the north of Glen Lake, that needs to be removed.
The only thing with that, if they're doing public lands, like that made me look, oh, well, do
Well,
they have like the
that's why we
town
need
hall, the
clarification.
common?
Well, actually, when that was built for the kindergarten, did they actually did they transfer that portion of the land title to the
Yes, they
school
did.
board?
Yeah.
So then that should be in the GIS, it should be
Yeah.
easy to,
Yeah.
Okay.
to break off, leave the other one as public land.
Yes,
Well,
So
yeah.
the Glen Lake School.
yeah, leave it there and maybe over time.
But I think that needs to be a comment to them,
Mhm.
that, there's a clear distinction between conservation lands
And
and public lands, whatever they consider that. How do they define public lands?
They might actually be putting that like down here. I'm like, is that Bartlett? Oh, that's over. It's not even on ours.
Yeah.
I'm like
Okay.
looking to see if there's other town land, like I know these are like the the Glasstown Water Precinct land.
Yeah. And, no, my mind is spacing, I can't think of the name.
Roberts,
Pat
Sullivan,
Sullivan
Take this
and
one out.
Gastrock, Martin Gastrock.
Overfield.
Yeah, that's actually easement around the old Captain Carr
Mhm.
house.
Oh, yeah.
This must be Roberts, right?
Well, this one, I don't know that title has actually transferred yet, so I don't know if this should be counted, so I guess we'll hold off on this one for a while.
Okay.
The one that butts the river that was done,
Yeah.
Lost Pines,
is it the one that
By the
involved the
cemetery?
PLC?
yeah.
Yeah, that one, that hasn't been recorded yet. I don't know exactly what's going on with that one.
I'm not sure
That's the
either
one off of
when I
Henry
looked down.
Bridge,
Mhm.
kinda, that
Yeah.
one.
So I have it in my map just so I know it's there, but that one may not be completed yet. And then there's, what is this? Is this the,
Hillsborough County.
shows up, it's not in Granite, but it shows up in ours as an open space, or is that land? Where's the old landfill? Is that a town?
That would be in Penang.
That would be
Penang.
Penangville, right?
That could be
But this
around,
is the Hillsborough
This is-
County.
Laurier
this is
Street.
Right here.
land.
It's right
not-
here, on this one.
Not far
The
enough
Surratt
down.
Fields are right here.
Okay, so what would this be, do you know? Just
This
not too
is-
far from-
that looks like it's down by Dana's Park.
Right,
though.
does, exactly. Because
'Cause that
this
looks-
is 114 coming
Yeah,
in, right here.
114, yeah.
So you go right straight across
Mhm.
114 and
At
it's
the
right.
I think it's
bottom
like a
of-
strongly protected area or something.
Right. This is,
I don't know what would be
this
down
is
there.
your intersection. I don't either. Wow, houses down there, I thought.
I don't know what's down there.
Is it one of these condo common areas?
That's what I would
It
think,
could-
that,
It could be,
'Cause here's-
Morgan Estates is down there.
because here's your
Okay, Morgan
stoplight.
Estates is in my list.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what
And
that was.
it shows as 21, almost 22 acres,
Yep.
and that looks about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what that is, that's Morgan Estates.
Do we have,
That's their common living area.
is that on here yet?
No.
Where's 114?
No, I don't see it.
Where's Wallace
Yes,
Road?
they don't show that.
And
Then
that was-
that's a condo, that's,
Well, see, this is where it gets confusing, because the early open space areas subdivisions, there was no protection put on. And as an awareness of that has grown over time, you know, then there were deed restrictions,
Yeah.
and,
Mhm.
you know, and now we've actually had a couple of real bona fide conservation easements. So
Yeah.
you have a whole spectrum,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and when do you count it and when don't you count it?
I don't understand how a condo association can be considered it even as open,
Land.
it's, because they all own the land in common. They
Yeah,
get,
but
they
they-
get billed for their unit and they own the,
And a lot of times it's restricted to,
Right, it's not public
like,
land.
it's not public at
It's-
all.
It's not public land,
It's open
but
space.
if that area has a conservation easement on it, whether it's a condo association or who owns it,
Protected from
then
development.
it should be included,
Okay.
because it could be
and I don't know
a
if they do
buffer
or not.
relevant to other areas.
Or a connection to another.
Especially down
The
here.
rail
Yeah.
trail goes
Another,
by
like
there.
Some of these, so in the Harry Brook corridor, these are, you know, associated with subdivisions.
Mhm.
Some of them have some good, strong protection, and they're very, very important for the habitat they're protecting.
David, would Catamount near me be, because that was, they developed, there was supposed to be some open space doing that development all around
I think.
that, that area.
Yeah, there should be, but I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever seen an image
That
for
could
it
be
or-
that one, or that, or it's Lisa Drive, or that one. One of these is, I
Well, the
believe,
Streets aren't actually
Cinnamon.
in yet, are they? I mean, has that development happened, or is
They extended it from,
they
From
extended
Monarch,
the road, but
they
they've
s-
right,
actually been
right
building
through.
houses?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
they've been building.
and there's supposed to be quite a bit supposedly left for, open space.
Yep.
So I just wanna make sure that's, if
I
that's
think-
included.
I don't think it is. I mean, this is, this is an old one here,
Mm.
and Which one of
That
these
one
roads
might be
would be-
Peppermint.
Look, and this has to be that development.
Is it Peppermint and Time Way?
It has to be.
And then this
Cause-
must be Lisa Drive.
Where's this
Yeah.
must be Terrell Hill.
Cinnamon Woods, I think that one's called.
Yeah.
Cinnamon Woods Open.
It butts Easton Burn.
So I wonder where the Catamount Ridge off of
I bet
Monarch
you
would
it's-
be.
Be down
I bet
in
you it's
here.
somewhere over here.
It's gonna be
See,
over here.
and there's no green there.
Yeah, I don't think it's in my list either. I don't think I've ever received seen any kind of shape file for it.
Okay.
I'm thinking that's
Because
probably it.
Last time I got an update from the town was
'Cause
several years ago.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
What's
saying
this
it's
one
probably
here?
right around here.
so how do you get it to be green?
Well, we,
This area
if
we're
we look
talking
at it
about.
and there's an easement on it, or unless they're doing undevelopable land,
Then
that's why
it's-
we were wishing it said undevelopable land,
Rather than just,
than just,
What's this one, Gene, do you know what this one is?
what, on this side over here?
Near the Dunbarton line?
No, that's, there you go.
Yes.
I think
East,
that's Lisa Drive and
Yeah,
Jenny Drive,
Is it?
that's
Panciaco subdivision.
way up. Cause here's
Remember that one?
here's Monalona, and here,
Yeah, those right in
Seeing
there.
that
yeah,
line?
it's right in that area.
84 and 85?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Eric
Remember-
Mitchell, I think, was
Yeah.
the surveyor.
remember that?
Yep, 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 yep.
That one they call Ruth's Meadow.
Ruth's
Bruce
Meadows.
That's what it was,
That's
yep.
it.
Yep.
Remember that?
Anyway, Lisa Drive, developer Batchelder, easement holder.
Even
this
I
one
remember
actually
that.
says that
You, I was gonna say, you probably remember that
That's
one.
The
that one.
town of Goffstown actually has an easement on that, and there's a recorded deed number.
Okay.
That was
This
an
is-
old
This
one.
is when they started getting better.
That was
Yeah.
probably one of the
Yeah.
first, that's probably one of the
Yeah, I
first
remember
ones.
there
These,
was
I'm
a
not
lengthy
sure
discussion
how
on
they
that.
were.
Yes, for quite a while.
Unfortunately, it's a terrible one, the way it's all.
Look at how
spread
they did
around
it.
and,
Chuck even remembers that one.
But we were moving in the right
So
direction.
it's moving in the right
Yeah.
direction.
That was the beginning.
First get it protected, second make it make sense.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
We'll deal with it later.
Okay.
And then what
This
about,
is what we have.
is Longbrook an open space subdivision? I'd have to look at that one. That comes off of Addison Road and butts Kennedy Hill Road.
Oh, yeah,
I don't think that's on here. I don't see that.
you're right, that's not on here.
If it's that, it has to be, that one might have
Right
easements on
here,
it.
it's this one, I included it in my map.
So maybe we should just get this together and,
What's
And
that,
this one is,
what's
this,
that red thing? Oh, that's Robert's here?
Robert's.
yeah, that's proposed, and this one is significant
big
because
green
if
area.
this
It's a
goes
big,
through, then, you
Right.
know, it
Yep.
extends
It
the-
connects.
It's gonna connect all these little guys, right?
Yeah. So Longbrook is one that needs to be,
Mm.
let me just look at it, if it's in this map, it's in this list, I hope.
map
No guarantee.
3 lot 1 dash 1 dash whatever. Map 3 lot 1 dash 1. I see these,
Remember this?
I do.
Wow, I'm
You're
so-
impressed.
You got a sick
I
mind,
can-
Patty.
It's,
I
I
was
see,
just
I see the
thinking
map
she
in
can-
lots so much. I see, Brian's like, how do you remember those? I'm like, I'm keep looking at
Cause you keep looking at them.
Don't ask me to
So
remember anyone's
these that-
name, so.
Now, was this one on the map?
That one
On
was
Kennedy Hill?
on
No,
Kenny,
it's
no,
not in the
it's not
map.
on
It's not
this
in the
one.
map.
It's not in my spreadsheet either, I missed that, I must have gotten the shape file for
Let
it.
me,
but-
that one I would think, cause that's pretty new, would have some sort of easement on it, we can check. So if you, I mean, rather than, if you wanna just have us look at all the stuff, and what you list you
Okay.
have, and then
Yeah.
if I can, maybe we can somehow do it and see what, Neil gets, the CDs too, or the DVDs to look at that can show some of this, maybe to, from our JAS to give to them. I don't know if he has something
You
in,
know, if I get anything from Neil, what I'd really like is an update to the town cadastre layer, which is the
Town.
properties, cause then, even if they're labeled as conservation or not, at least the lines are now correct and I can label them in.
yeah, and I looked to see if
which is
there
what
was
he
any,
gave me before.
yeah. Okay,
Okay, so, do we leave this with you, Patty?
yeah,
She's
if you
taking
wanna,
yours too?
if you, or, cause I'll probably
me
be
just-
calling you to,
Yeah, let me
to
just
get
write
it
on the
clarified,
side here what
rather
some
than
of
us
these
going.
are.
Cause I'll have to print off whatever forms to see, and I may be asking you to,
Oh, and all of the Shirley Hill,
yeah, well,
all
then
the
don't you have,
Welch and.
That's not on here,
Shirley
right?
Hill, that's, none of that's on here.
like, this I think's a condo, that's the one I said off of Wallace Road, I thought was a condo, I
It
thought
is,
that,
that's that,
Apple,
Apple
Apple.
something, yeah.
Apple Drive.
So,
Does
so actually you
Manchester
see
show all their
you see a pattern
condos?
here, it's like all the projects we've done that have real protection of opposed to the ones that are getting in the map.
Fine.
but yeah, the Shirley Hill next to the, cemetery, isn't that
Mm.
where it was near? That's not on here, let me make Shirley Hill.
We took a little
Yeah,
file.
yeah.
Well, it's all of these.
All
It's
of the,
one, two, there's like 6 parcels.
All right, so if I look at that, I can probably, Shirley Hill, all right.
Well, I can give you a map and lot numbers.
Okay.
If there's a highlighter in the room, that would be perfect, I could just highlight it in here. If not, I'll
I mean-
just draw pencil marks, I'll indicate it.
I don't have
I
a
don't have a
highlighter with me.
highlighter with me.
Except the long, what's this
Actually,
called,
you know what?
Longwood?
I have a blue Sharpie.
What did we say the name of this is, Longwood?
Longbrook?
Longbrook?
Is that what, is that a, yeah, that should be Longbrook, I believe.
Longbrook.
It's Longbrook Drive, excuse me.
That might be better,
Yeah.
because that's hard to write on, his slides. Just put done.
I think so. If you wanna- And then give, yeah.
Okay.
Wanna adjourn and then.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. David, you're gonna work on that, and, any other, do you have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank
Alright.
you.